Hello everybody, Oliver G here from the Eiffel Tower, and today's episode is all about the Marais. Yes, the letter M is for the Marais, but I'm going to try and take a slightly different approach to it. So first, the basic facts. The Marais, if you've never heard of it before, is the 3rd and 4th arrondissements of Paris, very central, and a very good mix of old and new. So new coffee shops, new restaurants, but old buildings, ancient buildings sometimes. And I think there's been about 1,000,001 guides for your first time to the Marais, second time, fifth time, whatever. But I wanted to take a different approach. I wanted to think about your final visit to the Marais. This is playing a little bit on an idea, something I used to ask guests on this podcast a lot at the end of the episodes. I used to say, what would you do if it was your last day ever in Paris? And so I took that and ran with it for the Marais. Now, you're going to hear from me, my last day in the Marais, plus a few long-time friends of the Eiffel Tower. There's also going to be a lot of tips thrown in, and there'd be something wrong with me, really, if I didn't say the best way to see the Marais is to book one of the Eiffel Tower walking tours. I've been leading a lot of them personally myself, but we have 4 great guides who can all do the Marais tour. In other words, we're going to be available if you want to do it. So more on that at the end of the episode. But if you're curious already, the eiffeltower.com/tours is a good place to start. Now, a little bit of music from our maestro, Press Maxson. Here comes this week's song. So in case you figure that you know that song already, let me read from Press Maxson right now. For the letter M, I've turned to Parisian-born artist Manu Chao. And one of his most popular songs also happens to start with the letter M, Me Gustas Tu. He got his start busking in Paris, which is a romantic notion in and of itself, and his style isn't really something we've done on the Eiffel Tower before. So I recorded our version to keep his original feel, but I also added a guitar solo worthy of, and here comes another M word, the manouche style of jazz. Enjoy. Thank you, Press Maxson. I did enjoy it. I'm actually a fan of Manu Chao. So you got me on a bit of a Manu mood, and I started listening to it this week. Can recommend everybody do the same. But now we dive into the Marais. And like I said in the intro there, I used to ask people, if you had to leave Paris forever tomorrow and it was your last day, how would you spend it? And then I kind of forgot that I asked that question. And it wasn't until, I'll set the scene actually, I was doing a tour of the Marais. I've been doing these semi-private tours. And we went into a building where perhaps, it's not totally open to the public. And I said, hey, look, if I'm going to get kicked out of Paris, it's probably going to be for going into these big, beautiful courtyards where maybe the public's not allowed to go. And one of the guests on my tour said, well, Oliver, if you were going to get deported from Paris, what would be your last day? And it was the first time anyone asked me my own question, and I was kind of stumped. So it got me thinking, how would I spend my last day in the Marais? And I'm going to spell it out for you because I put a lot of thought into it. For whatever reason, I can't come back. Here's what I'd do. I would start off early, as in just as the shops start opening, perhaps. I go for a coffee at Le Peloton Cafe, right in the heart of the Marais. You guys who've been listening to my show for ages know I go way back with these guys. And if I could kind of script the perfect day, I think Paul Barron, one of the co-owners and co-founders, would be working, and he'd come out and go, sorry to hear it's your last day. Let's reminisce a little about the years that have gone. And we'd do that over a flat white coffee. And, if it wasn't him, it'd be fine. The staff are all great there. But if I get to pick my last day, we'd sit out the front on those yellow chairs, watch the city go by a little bit as Paris starts to wake up. And then I'd be on my way. But knowing that he'd be part of my last day, I thought I'd go and test it out. So this morning I did exactly that. And lo and behold, Paul was there. And I said, hey man, you got 5 minutes? I wouldn't mind asking you a question. So I posed the same question to Paul. Big part of his life has been in the Marais. So I asked him how he'd spent his last day. Here's how it went. Paul from Peloton, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Oliver. Thanks for coming.
It's been an awfully long time that we've known each other now. Like, it feels like Paris years is like dog years a little bit, don't you think? If you've known someone for 6 years in Paris, it's like 30 years in...
Oh, no, completely. I think any relationship or friendship over a couple years, it's actually, I've known him since the start.
It's kind of because people keep moving around this city. There's like, which it reminds me a little bit of the Peloton. Like, in the years, what is it?
It's been 8 years now.
Okay. And I started going there when it was new.
I know, when we first opened. And that seems...
Just got attacked by a wasp.
By a wasp.
I wonder if people could hear that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that seems like a lifetime ago. So in human years, that's what, 40 years?
At least 40 years
right.
We've known each other.
So
yeah,
on my last day, I came in, a bit nostalgic here, came in and reflected. You were serving on the last day. Got a flat white, as tradition is. And I feel like maybe we stood out the front and talked a little bit about those 8 years and how much everything has changed. We both look a bit older, I think.
Talk about yourself there.
I was talking about you. No. But then I got to thinking, like, you've spent a lot of time in the Marais. I think your kids go to school here?
Yeah, my kids go to school here, right. And I actually moved here 22 years ago. Actually lived in the Marais.
Whereabouts?
I was in Rue Vieille de Temps, maybe my favorite street.
Yeah.
I love that street.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a nice street.
Yeah.
Good doors, some really good doors.
Really good doors, and if you go through the doors, you're going to see a lot of really cool stuff as well.
So, well, there you go. There's something to do. And before we talk about your last day in the Marais, I just want to give a shout out to your cafe, Le Peloton, your bike tours, bike about tours.
Yep, that's it.
And a shout out to you and Christian who were on, because I'm getting nostalgic.
Oh, I'm feeling nostalgic as well at the moment, actually.
You were on maybe one of the first 10 episodes I ever did this show, out in this almost the suburbs. You guys cycled out. Do you remember?
I do remember. That's when I thought, I'm not too sure if Oliver's going to make it. And look at you now. Yeah, look at you now.
No, but you had every reason, because that episode got deleted, remember?
I remember that.
So there's one for all the long-time listeners. But let's talk about your last day. Talk me through. You also said you'd start with a coffee at the Peloton. Did you just nod to
a monk? Yeah, actually, we're very lucky. We have a monastery behind the cafe, and over the years, I've gotten to know all the monks and nuns pretty well.
Are you allowed to? Is anyone allowed to visit the monastery, or how's that?
Oh yeah, you can, absolutely. It's open every day, and if you're lucky, you might even get invited over for lunch.
A lunch with monks and nuns.
It's happened to me a couple of times. Well, the great thing is they make all their own food, but the great thing is that lunch is held in silence, so no chit-chatting.
I feel like, because your cafe, like, there's a lot of talking, like, you're chatting to people and everyone. I bet you could use that relief sometimes.
Oh, no, absolutely. I don't get me wrong. I love chatting to people and hearing stories and telling stories. But when I got invited over to the monk's place for lunch and I heard it was in silence, it was it was amazing. It really was, because you really got to enjoy the food.
You know what's weird? That first episode that we did, you recommended that, or maybe it was Christian recommended that corruptible or...
The uncorruptible nun.
Every time on this show you talk about some unusual...
I don't know, it's weird. Well, a monk just walked past us and I said hello to him, so it's always kind of there, you know.
Okay, so... We'll get back to the nuns, and the monks, but I feel what we said, you start with a coffee at Peloton, just like I did, but your day probably differs from mine. How would you spend it?
Well, so it definitely would start with a coffee, and not just because we're at the Peloton, but I feel like just walking through the streets with a cup of coffee just makes it even better. So, and I think probably would definitely go to the Carnavalet Museum to start things off. And I say that because obviously that's the museum of Paris. It's recently been renovated, and I have not actually found the time to go there since it's been renovated. So I think I'd start with that.
So your last day of Paris, you're going to go do something for the first time.
Well, there you go.
That's
See?
Interesting. That says a lot about you. Right?
I know, yeah. But just to soak in all that history that Paris has that I know a lot of, but to actually experience in the museum setting would be great, I think.
Do you remember, did you go there before it's...
before they renovated it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I heard it's... I never went before, but I've been many times since it reopened. It's really spectacular.
It is spectacular.
You've set yourself up for success on your last day.
I have.
So are you going to go there by yourself?
I will.
Yeah.
I think there's something, because I'm always around people, something about strolling through the streets by myself on my last day would be definitely something that I would enjoy.
Okay. What else would we include on this day?
Okay, well, absolutely. After a visit there, I would definitely go to my favorite lunch spot, which is Miznon, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Rue des Écouffes.
Yep, and I love that name of that street as well for some reason. And I love Miznon because it's very chaotic when you go in there. I love how they take your order, and then literally when it's ready, they shout your name, like literally from the rooftops, which I find really amusing. And the food is so good, and I think it's because they've taken, really good Israeli food, mix it with the French, and you get something really delicious, and you can take away. So I continue my journey walking.
Is this not frowned upon by French people? Takeaway food on the go, coffee on the go?
Well, do you know what? Now that I'm actually officially French,
I don't care.
I don't care, and I literally don't. I'm like, well, I'm French, so I can do what I like, which wasn't the case before because I felt like a foreigner. But now I'm French. If I want to,
So if someone gives you a dirty look, you just show your...
pretty much my passport says I'm French. I might not look it because I'm eating and drinking in the street, but I'm French, so don't say anything.
Okay, so walk me through the afternoon. You got your... What's the order from Miznon?
I would definitely get the boeuf bourguignon. Okay. It's in the pita, and maybe a side cauliflower. I don't know how easy that is to walk with, but the roasted cauliflower.
Hopefully you finish
delicious.
the coffee at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so
absolutely.
You got one in each hand. You're leaving Miznon.
Yep.
You're eating on the go.
And do you know what? Because when I first moved to Paris 22 years ago, I lived in Rue Vieille du Temple. I think I'd probably walk the length of that street. And as I passed number 42, I would remember as a 22-year-old, that is where I lived, with 2 other girls in 1 bedroom. Wow. And just soak it up because the street in itself has changed dramatically. And just walk down that street and kind of reminisce about, what I've been through and what everyone's been through in the last, 20 years or
it's
so.
It's a nostalgic thought, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah. What is it about that?
I've got a theory that everything with visiting Paris is nostalgia, even if you've not been here, because you've seen it so much on the movies or the songs or whatever, that people have this nostalgia for Paris that maybe doesn't even actually exist. So it doesn't surprise me over 22 years you've built up.
I can imagine that, because when I do ride around the city, especially the Marais, I can say, oh, that's where, I did this or I did that, when I was 25, and now, and hopefully, because the kids go to school here and the coffee shop is here, that the kids will have those childhood memories, just like Otis as well, when they grow up to be like, oh, I remember doing this with my dad here, and that's a real privilege that we've got, I think.
Yeah. I think if Otis is going to go back and retrace me and Lena's steps from Paris, you got a lot of work to do. Cause
you've been all over the place, haven't you?
Let's finish though. What evening? Sun's starting to set.
Sun's starting to set. Do you know what? I would go get a bottle of wine from A Lot of Wine, which is down the road from us, and I would have a drink with my wife. Probably sitting down by the river, couple glasses of wine.
Finish the bottle.
Yeah, finish the bottle. Actually, the other day we did it and we didn't have glasses. That was a little less classy, passing the bottle.
You're French. It doesn't matter.
But I don't know. I think probably just, the 2 of us. And no matter how long I've been here, when you are down by the river and the sun is setting, magical.
To paint that picture for people at home who maybe don't know the Marais that well, which part of the river are you going to be sitting at?
At the bottom of the cafe. Yeah. There's a street called Rue Pont Louis de Philippe. You walk down from the center of the Marais to the end of our street, and basically down by the river, there's a big walkway and cycleway that used to be a very busy road, and thanks to our mayor, she transformed it into a place for people to hang out. and then on the other side is the Ile Saint-Louis.
We forget that though. That's not the Marais. We don't even dare speak its name.
Sorry, yeah. So we're officially still in the Marais, down by the river, enjoying a bottle of wine.
So you go down and to the left, perhaps?
Down on the left.
Yeah.
Yep, that's my favorite route.
I'll share pictures of it on social media. I hope your last day in the Marais isn't anytime soon, because you seem happy here.
Yeah, very happy, yeah.
But thanks for sharing that nostalgic, hypothetical day with me.
Thanks, Oliver.
Let's go get a coffee.
Okay, great.
So a reminder there, you can find Le Peloton Cafe and Bike About tours in the Marais. You can find them linked in the show notes below, and I'll endeavor to write all the museums and everything that we mentioned on this episode too. Now, back to what I'd be doing. I talked to Paul a little bit after I pressed stop, and I feel like in a weird way I'd want to sort of give some version of a tour of the Marais. So either to people who listen to the show, to family, to friends. I feel like one of my favorite things about the Marais is showing things, having a bit of an audience to say, look at this, isn't this story cool? So if it could be the perfect day, I'd do a real mini tour, like half an hour or an hour or something like that. And it would almost certainly have to go past the long stretch of the Philippe Auguste Wall, which I love showing to people. I love talking about it. And I think even if I wasn't doing it as a tour, if I was there just by myself, I'd have quite the nostalgia bomb of standing there looking at that basketball court where I can still so clearly remember almost 10 years ago, rocking up there like a child, hanging up against the iron railings there, watching the people play basketball and thinking, just what a beautiful setting for a basketball court with the big St. Paul church in the background and this intriguing looking wall running along the western side of it. So if it was the nostalgic final walk through the Marais, I'd like to think that I'd either watch the basketballers shooting hoops thinking, I used to mix it with you guys once upon a time, or if I'm lucky, maybe some of the players that I know would be there and they'd come over and say, hello, Oliver, we wish you well on your next journey in life. But anyway, from there, probably pop up towards the, like the tour does actually, probably pop through the St. Paul Church, through the Hôtel de Sully and into the Place de Vosges, where I'd like to meet my family. Maybe let my son, Otis, 2 years old, play in the sand pits of the Place de Vosges, which every time it happens, it just feels like it's kind of surreal. That 400-year-old Place de Vosges, beautiful setting, and just seeing my own son play in the sandpit there with this historical setting, it always almost gives me the shivers in a good way. At around this point, I'd have lunch somewhere. Paul had a good idea going to Miznon. I love Miznon, but really, it doesn't matter for me. For me, lunch is just as much about where you are, who you're with. Perhaps I'd have lunch with Lena and Otis, but who knows, perhaps I'd go through all the people that have some kind of Marais connection with me and meet up with them one by one after the day. Incidentally, for this episode, I'm going to take you to a small, unnamed cafe right in the thick of it in the 4th arrondissement, where I met with Amber Minogue, another long-time friend of the show, and she does the Marais walk for Eiffel Tower listeners sometimes too, more often the Louvre, but also the Marais. And today I sat down and had lunch with her, and I posed the same question to her, how she'd spend her last day in the Marais. Here's what she said. Amber Minogue.
Oliver G.
How many times have you been on this show now?
I don't know.
Because every time I say Amber Minogue, I think that's how I always begin it. So I'm having déjà vu.
It's true, yeah.
We're sitting at a cafe. Can you tell us the name of it?
Never.
Why not?
This is my cafe. I'm not telling anyone.
Is it a secret? I've never been here.
No, it is a secret. It's a secret cafe.
Can we at least explain why it's so good?
It's good because it's really it's just a local cafe. We know it. It's great prices and okay food.
Is that the secret to a good, it feels, without wanting to give away too much, it feels traditional.
Very traditional.
Yeah, I'm going to say it now. They brought out the menu, something we were both just commenting on, and in front of our very eyes, the owner removed one of the items from the chalked menu with his finger. It was like, it felt Harry Potterish almost. Is that some kind of metaphor for this place?
They've just got a sort of little limited menu, comes out every day, gets snapped up,
Does this tie in somehow with what you would do on your last day in the Marais? Would you come here, for example?
I might come here.
Okay, well, what else would you do that you can tell us about?
These are still, my secrets. But if I was going to have a last day in the Marais, I would probably go to the museum, the Musée de la chasse et de la nature, the hunting and nature museum, which everyone thinks sounds awful, but it's the best museum in Paris. It's so good.
Why is it so good? It sounds like it's just about shooting animals or something.
It is about shooting animals. I don't know, it's a beautiful hotel particulier, and it's been decorated really nicely. It's got these stuffed animals, they're really interesting, and there's just this really unusual decor that goes through it. I don't know, it's just a very special place, so I really, really like it. And then just one of the parks. There's so many beautiful little quiet spaces in the Marais, so I'd find one of those quiet little parks. If it was a sunny day like today, I'd go there.
Are these also secret parks? Can we get some names here, or what?
They're not secret parks, they're just more or less busy. So I don't know all the names actually, but they're often linked. So in the Marais are lots of hôtels particuliers, so they're now museums and stuff like that. So they were mansion houses which belonged to one family, and so each one had a garden. And so often if you find one of these lovely little museums or whatever, there'll be a garden behind it. So like Hôtel Sully, they've got a really beautiful garden with ivy growing up the wall, and of course Place de Vosges is really nice, or the gardens that go with the Carnavalet, or the gardens that go with the library which is here. So they're all just really nice.
So a bit of a private kind of garden, or at least hidden sort of garden, and the Musée de la chasse et de la nature.
Yeah.
Another one of those museums with a tough title. What's all that about?
They're just trying to make our lives tough.
In terms of, you've been doing a bunch of Louvre tours for Eiffel Tower listeners, but also some of the Marais as well. Have you noticed that, I've noticed, going into that garden in the Hôtel de Sully is one of those that really makes people's eyes light up? That's one of the magic. It's one of the magic moments of the Marais. Do you have a similar thing in the Louvre?
Something that makes people's eyes light up when they leave?
Besides the Mona Lisa.
When I take them to the secret bathrooms and it's got no queue. Yeah.
The secret bathroom. When you said that, I was imagining some kind of Napoleon bar. It's just a toilet.
Yeah. No, I'd say there's a perspective when you're going to go down the Apollo Gallery and you look to the left and you see this sort of long line of rooms leading up to where you're standing. That's quite magical. And the Apollo Gallery is quite magical, but busy.
But unfortunately, two unfortunates. The Louvre isn't in the Marais, so we don't care today. And also, unfortunately, some loud people have just come out right behind me. So on that note, we'll move on with our lunch. I'll thank you for sharing your last day in the Marais, and thanks for being you, Amber Minogue.
Thank you, Oliver G.
Thank you, Amber Minogue. Good museum tips. In fact, museum is probably how I'd spend my afternoon too. And if I didn't go to the Carnavalet, like Paul suggested, I think I'd go to the Musée des Archives, the archives, the National Archives, which I've talked about on this show before. Probably the most underrated museum in Paris. Free to enter. If you think you know what I'm talking about, or you maybe think you've heard about it or seen it, it features in the Mission Impossible Fallout movie. It's the bad guy headquarters where Tom Cruise goes in to meet about the plutonium or uranium or whatever the heck it is. And they do a pretty good justice to that, the beauty of that building. But I recommend everybody to go in there, even if you don't think you're interested in archives, go in just to look at the beauty of the building itself. So I'd probably do that. I'd probably go upstairs and look through, I don't know, whatever they got in there. And then I think it's only fair that I'd go to a library, because lately I think I'd really missed this. The libraries of Paris have become a bit of an intrigue and an interest of mine lately, especially the historical library of Paris, the Bibliothèque historique de la ville de Paris, which is in this old Hotel Particulier, just like Amber was talking about there, an old sort of 400-year-old townhouse, and the interior of it is really exceptional. Like first, if you become a member, you can go and sit in this incredible room with these exposed beams on the ceiling that are painted really intricately and beautifully. But if you're not a member, you can go in. It's so weird. You can go in there and just flick through 400-year-old books, and no one even questions you. you just go in and have a look. It's totally worth it, and I've become really interested in doing that lately. I love it, partly for a project that I'm working on that not many of you know about yet. All will be revealed, but also just because for the fun of it, I really like going in those old libraries. So I think I'd pay a quick visit to one of them just to savor that feeling of having access to an ancient Parisian library. And then for an evening, I don't think I'd join Paul and his wife for a glass of wine. Maybe quickly. Yeah, probably I'd pop down quick and intrude on their romantic date. But I think what I'd like to do would be to go to any old restaurant or any old bar on the terrace, overlooking a busy scene, and just sit and be a passive part of the background of the Marais and watch it all happen. That's what I think I'd do. I'd sit there and just watch it all go by. And I can recommend the amount of times people ask me for a good restaurant or a good bar, and the amount of times they've said, what I believe is the best way to do it sometimes is just look for the best available seat somewhere where you think you want to sit. It doesn't matter, you don't always need to go to the top-rated place on TripAdvisor or the place with the Michelin stars. Sometimes in Paris, it's about going by the speed of the city, the vibe of the quartier, the neighborhood that you're in. And I think the Marais is no exception. Often when I'm going to meet a friend or we're going to have a spontaneous drink or something, I'll often want to go somewhere that I've never been before just to see it from a different angle. I love that idea, finding the free spot, the available place, and watching the city go by. So I guess that's how I'd round out my final day in the Marais. And hopefully, for everyone listening at home, there's some tips and ideas in there for you to spend your next day. And may your final day in the Marais be a long, long way away, because heavens above, we don't want to really think about that, do we? Now, as I said at the start of the episode, we don't have sponsors on this show. We don't have adverts, but I'll give myself a little shout out for the Eiffel Tower tours. If you want to do a 2-hour walk through the Marais, we've started doing these semi-private groups, which means about 6 or 7 people going around with a guide, sometimes me, usually on Mondays. If you're here on a Monday and you're looking to do that walk, send me a message, especially on social media. I'm pretty active on social media before those walks. And I'll show you my version of the Marais, or one of my guides will show you. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the best way to see the district. Otherwise, just take all my tips and go and do it yourself. In any case, have a lovely time when you're doing it. And may you have many more trips to this city and walks through the Marais. That winds up this episode. My name is Oliver G. This is the Eiffel Tower Podcast. A huge thanks to all the Patreon supporters that keep this show going. Patreon.com/the Eiffel Tower. I'm glad I remembered to say something, because next month, October the 19th, is a Patreon-only event. So if you're in Paris, that's what we're going to be doing. Spaces are limited. The invite is going out today, so make sure you're quick. Otherwise, there'll be more events. There always are. I'll see you for one of them, or perhaps I'll see you on one of our walking tours. Merci beaucoup, everybody. See you for N next week. Have fun trying to figure out what it is. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a lovely week.